Okay, so this is my year in review box. It's a set of 3 different little albums in it. And you can see I put it in this box, which I made. And I'll talk a little bit later about how I made this. And I've got the date on the outside of it, and you can see up here. Now there's 3 different albums. So this first album is the journal. So the idea here is when you open it up, you see you have the different months. And you have plenty of space for writing whatever happened in each of those months. So this is the journal part of this boxed set. The other part is I've divided the year into half, and each one of these has a month on the side and has pullouts for putting pictures. Also, there's another hidden spot for more pictures in the side. You could use both sides of these. Now I'm going to show you how I made this in a few seconds. Put these back in here. And then the other 6 months are in here. And you'll notice that I bound the whole thing together with a cinch binding kit and add some ribbons. So then it all goes back into the box. Just like that. For the journal part of the album, you have to cut out each page out of chipboard. Or what I do is I take decorative paper and I build it up in a couple of layers, and then I run it through the Cricut and cut out my basic shape. I'm really not going to show that in this video. That's for another time. But I use the same shape for every one of the pages, and then these are what I will be putting my inserts on and my lettering and everything else like that. Okay, after you've got your pages cut out, then we're going to cut out what I call the event page. Now what I did with the event page, here's one to look at a little closer up. What I actually did with the event page was I went into a program on the internet called Wordle and put in words that deal with different events and occasions and things like that, and had it print this grid up. Actually didn't print the grid. What it printed out were the words. They're kind of hard to see if I close up here. You can see a little better. What I did was I printed those out in using my WordPerfect word processor, and I built the grid over top of it. And then what I did was, once I printed out the sheet, I fed the sheet into my Cricut and cut out the page right directly on that. We'll put it out here so you can take a look. Okay, so I picked the same shape as the actual page, this shape. You can see the little curly cues and things along here, along the edge. It's the same here. And then when I peel it off, I get this. Okay, after I've cut out the event page, as I call it, I'm going to ink around the edges just to give it that distressed look, and I'm going to use one of these pad holders. I think it's from Ranger, and put a felt pad on this. Now I've used this felt pad before, that's why it's already dark, and I'm just picking up some forest green, or is it forest moss? Forest moss, sorry. And I'm just going to dip it into this and then just sort of swirl it around the edges, and I'm not that careful with it. Some parts will be lighter, some parts will be darker. It's just to give it a little bit of dimension when I put it on the page so it'll stand out, and it gives it sort of that rustic, distressed look all the way around. So if you can see here what I've done, I'll lift it up. See all around the edges, I've put that around. Okay, next I'm going to mount this page to my actual page, and nothing too difficult about that. We're just going to put some two-sided tape all the way around the edges, a little bit in the middle, and place it here, and that's that, so you can see. Okay, I'm going to create the month header for the page. In this case I'm using May, so I'm using the Cricut Craft Room Design Studio, and I'm simply going to add a new text box here, and I'm going to type in the month. In this case I'm using May, and I'm also using the Cricut Craft Room Basic font collection. Now, the trick with this is I want to join them up. If I just leave it like that, it's going to print them out as 3 separate letters, and that's not what I want. So I want to weld them together. So first of all, I have to ungroup this. And now it's ungrouped. Now I'll pick my A, and I'm going to just move it over so it's going to touch the M. And I'm going to do the same thing with the letter Y. And I'm actually going to move it around a little bit. Come over here, get it touch. I might give it a little bit of an angle. Don't think I'm touching anymore. They have to touch. If they don't touch, then you're going to get separate pieces. There we go, it's touching. Okay, and I'm just doing it kind of funky so that each one looks a little different. And all I'm going to do now is just going to capture it all, and I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to change the size up here, and I'm basically making my width, oops, have to highlight it again, highlight the whole thing again, go up here, and I'm going to make the width, which is going to go this way. I'm going to make it about 5 inches. It's a small word. Actually, I think I'll put it to 6, see how that looks. Yeah, and I'm going to take the proportional off and change this to about 2 inches in height. And I really don't like the looks of that. It looks a little squishy. I think I'll make it a little smaller. There we go. And now I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so now I've cut out my title for this month, which happens to be May, right there, as you can see. And what I'm going to do with it now is flip it over, and I'm going to glue it to my page. And I'm just using one of those two-way glue sticks by the Zig, and I'm just putting dots of glue all over it. And then we'll flip it over and position it at the top of my page. And like I said, I'm not trying to keep things very straight. I'm just applying them. Makes it look a little funky. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next page, which is June. The inside piece of this album is kind of a neat way to make something like this as an insert into the booklet. The final book is going to be cinched bound, and so we're going to need an edge to punch holes in. But this is all made from one piece of cardstock, a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. You're actually going to take the cardstock, and if it's double-sided, even better, and you're going to cut it into a strip 6 inches by 12 inches. In other words, just cut it in half. And then by doing some folding, you're going to get this effect with a pocket, with a small pocket here, and with a tag area as well. So I'm going to show you how to make that next. To make the little insert with the pockets, you're going to take your sheet of paper that you've cut 6 by 12, pattern paper or whatever paper you want. Double-sided is neat for this technique as well, though I am not using double-sided in this case. And then you're going to score 2 lines one at 4 inches and one at 8 inches, and I'm using a scoring board for this, but you could do it simply by measuring it off at 4 and at 8 and using a ruler and scoring tool. So I'm doing it at 4, and I'm just pressing it hard enough to get a good groove for folding it, and then I'm doing it at 8. And then, after you have it scored, you're going to take your paper trimmer and you're going to lay it lengthwise and put it up to about a half inch from the edge. And then you're going to take the blade, as you can see here. I'm starting at the bottom, doesn't matter, start at the bottom and top, and you're going to cut along here up to where you put one of the creases. Just up to the edge, bottom, and then at the other end as well to the other crease. Then you're going to take this and just fold it at the score mark, make it even there, and do the same thing with the piece at the top. And then taking your double-sided tape or glue, put a little glue there, fold it back over, make it sure it's even with the edge, and then put a little glue down here and do the same thing. Fold that over. So what you have here is when you go to punch this to put your cinch binding through, you're going to have a spot that's going to be reinforced for the holes. Then you take this, flip it over. In the case that I'm not using double-sided, fold along the crease down here, fold up here, and let's get the right sides here where I want to go. Actually, I may want to do it this way. No, don't want to do it that way. Here. On this edge, I'm just going to pull this flap down here and fold it along the baseline. It's going to create a pocket in here. And now you're going to take your zig glue stick or tape runner, whatever, and we're just opening up the flap, as you can see here. And I'm just putting glue, a line of glue, just at the very edge. This will seal that. Fold that over, give it a good press. And you're going to do the same with the triangle. Flip that over, and on the edge just put another line of glue, fold that over, hold it down, and you've made one of the insert pages. Now you're going to make a second one of these because it's going to be glued to the back of this, so you have a double page. If you take a look at my example here, you see you have that side and you have that side. Okay, those two are just two of these glued back to back. Now you'll also notice that I'm having a little trouble getting this to stick down, so what I do is I take some of those binder clips and just clip them all along the edges here where the glue is and let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then it sticks to it. Now once you've made two of these, you're going to glue them back to back. So just flip one over and put your glue around the edges. You want to put a fair amount of glue on because this has to hold together. Take the other one and line it up. and glue it down well. And there's your double-sided insert. Inside each of these pockets, you're going to create a spot where you can hold photos. And it's just an accordion fold, so you can cut out any shape you want. I did sort of a scalloped edge using my Cricut, but you can cut any side you want. And you can see it's double-edged. And you want to accordion fold it equally, so you have 3 sections on either side. So, if you notice around here in the border, there's a lot of distressing happening before the mat. So the way to do that is simple. I'll just tuck that back in there. See that where it was in there? So you cut your mat out of whatever color cardstock you want. I'm not using colored cardstock. I'm just using a cream because I'm going to show you a technique for distressing this. I've already pre-scored it where I want my folds to happen, so it's easy to fold up as an accordion. And what I'm going to do first with this is I'm going to take a spritzer full of water, and I'm simply going to soak this. I'm using a craft sheet underneath this. It's from Ranger. I really love this craft sheet because it's very easy for cleanup and for things like this spraying. You can see there's quite a bit of water on this. You want to get it pretty wet because this is going to make crumpling it up to get some distress lines on it very easy. So give that just a second or two to soak into it, and then very carefully you're going to take this and just crumple it up. Now be careful that you don't rip it when you do this, but give it a good squeeze, get it right tight in a ball, and it is pretty wet. And then you're going to unfold it very carefully again because it could rip, and lay it down on your craft sheet and give it a pat to smooth it out. I'm going to show you a trick later for getting all the wrinkles out. And you see what you have here. It's kind of maybe hard to see in this light. Try to position it around. You get all these little ridges and whatnot. Now what you're going to do next is you're going to take your ink pad, whatever color you want, and I'm going to use a combination of colors. I'm going to use alcohol inks work best for this, the Tim Holtz line. I'm going to use Rusty Hinge, and I'm going to use a little darker one, Walnut Stain. So I'm going to start with the darker one, and there are various methods for doing this. I'm going to do it direct from the stamp pad. I'm simply just going to tap it all over. I'm not that concerned that these little comes up with these little square marks. If you are, you could just swirl it on using the felt tip. You're going to do it on both sides. The reason I'm not concerned about this showing up the little squares because most of this is going to be covered with matte pieces. And I'm doing it heavier around the edges as well to give it some definition. Now I'm just going to take my other color. I'm using this Rusty Hinge. Just gives it a bit of an orangey red look. Again, any color combination you like will work. Flip it over. Do the same on the other side. And now I have a textured piece, but it's still pretty wet. Now you could do one of two things with this. You can leave this to dry. It'll take it maybe an hour or two. Or if you're in a rush, you can get out your heat gun and just simply dry it with that. Go over it several times. I'm going to continue to dry this, and then I'm going to come back and show you a little trick I have with a device for flattening it out. Okay, here's my trick for flattening out your sheet. After it's dried, you're going to find that it's a little wrinkly, which in itself isn't so bad, but you may want to flatten it out since it's going into an album. Now you can do this with an iron, just an ordinary iron set on dry, not on steam, and that'll press it out, and that's fine. But what I do is I have a heat laminator, you know, for laminating those plastic sheets and things, you know, on pages. So you just put this between the traveler card. Make sure your laminator's heated up. Start it up. Put it through. And this actually works like a pressing machine. And what I usually do is I'll run it through a couple of times, and that presses it right down really well. But as I said, you could do the same thing with an iron if you wish it to be flatter than the way it dries. Takes it a couple of seconds to come out, but once it does, and we're going to pretend here that I've run it through the machine twice. I usually find running it through the machine twice is the best way to go. It makes it just that much flatter. But you can see right there how much flatter it is and easier to fold up. Okay, so next we're going to work on putting the mat on the little accordion insert in the pocket. They look like that, and you have double-sided, so you can get as many as 6 pictures on this. The mat can be any shape you like. I just did it the same shape as the accordion fold, and just made it slightly smaller. But you'll notice in around the edges I've distressed those as well with ink, and I'll show you how I did that. Here's one that's partially finished, and I'm just taking whatever color you want. I'm using a dark brown ink pad, and you just lightly touch the edges with that, and that will give you, if you can see that, that will give you a little definition line. And you just go around all sides of this, doing this, and as simple as that. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to glue these down. So take your accordion fold. I like to fold it back up just to see where the sides are, and take your tape runner, and on the back just give it some glue and center it. Oops, not quite centered. Glue it down, straight around, and do the same for each of the panels after that. Next thing you want to do is create your tags that are going to go into this little slide piece here. They just slide in and out. And here's what one of my tags looks like. I've already made them. Now I used the Cricut to cut out my shape, and it could be any shape that you'd want. Then I did that distressing technique on it that I showed you with the rectangular mats, the accordion fold mats. And then I put an eyelet right in here, and put whatever color ribbon you would like to use. The eyelet just reinforces it, and pulled the ribbon through, and it'll tuck right into the side of this in here too. So you see, you make 2 of these because you're going to have tag on either side, and if you pull one out just a little further than the other, when you finally assemble the album, it'll look kind of decorative. So you've got more space for journaling or for pictures on here as well. Now if you don't have a Cricut to make your tags, you can simply just use a punch or cut them out freehand, or use a template, or you can even go to some place like Staples and pick up tags that they use for mailing. And then by using some distressing techniques, you can personalize them for your album. So now we're going to add the shortened form of the month name right along this little margin here. So I've already pre-cut out my month right there. I'll put it there so you can see it better. And you can do this any design you wish, whatever font. And now I'm just going to take it, and I'm going to use my Zig glue stick and just put a generous amount of glue all the way around, and then take it and center it and just put it down there. Then I'm just going to flip the whole thing over, and this will be for my next month, which is June in this case. There's the cutout for that. And you notice I took the letters and just sort of scrambled them just to give it a more interesting look, rather than have everything straight and linear. Just have a little fun with it. And we're doing the same thing here. Just putting the glue all around it with the Zig stick. And we'll put it down. There. Now the only last thing we have to do is put the little embellishment in these areas here. The last thing I add to this insert is the little embellishment, and I've been using flowers, but you could put anything that you like on that. And for these, I just cut them out in the Cricut, and I've got them in two pieces, and there's a hole in the center already. What I do is I go around the edges of them with a dark stamp pad, just in the same way that I went around the edges of the rectangular mats. And you just get a brad or whatever you want to do to put them together, stick them in. And then to give it a little dimension, I take the inside flower and I just bend the little petals up just a little bit all the way around. Just gives it a little bit more of a dimension. And to add just a little more dimension to it, I take my pot dots and place a pot dot on the back of the flower. And then I just adhere it wherever I want it. Presto! So that's how I created my album for a whole year in a box. The idea here is that rather than storing up your pictures and waiting until sometime when you got a chance to create an album out of them all, you can do it throughout the year. Sit down for a few minutes, write about what's happened in the last month in the journal part, and if you've got some pictures, you can print them out very quickly, cut them out, put them in the little mini albums, and at the end of the year you've got a whole box set of what went on in your life in the year. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for future ones. Thanks. Bye-bye.